Oh man, I've been talking on and on here a while, but I didn't have it on because I had it on photo mode instead of video mode. Durr! Um, let's say a little bit about Ellen G. White and her place in this chapter. I don't want to say everything I just said. Um, Rice gives her more ink than any theologian really would. I don't think he feels like he has to, but he is. But because she's such a good example of the cosmic conflict model, um, it's worth his talking about her. Um, I won't do everything I was going to do. We'll say that as Rice mentions, for White, this is a matter of God's character being demonstrated through this great conflict. This is page 85. As Ellen White describes it, the central issue of the great controversy. The book was called The Great Controversy between. I was back there. Between Christ and Satan. That was the name of the book. Published in 1888. I will tell you. No, I don't know if that's the case. Anyway, my grandparents on my dad's side were very, very fervent Seventh-day Adventists. My grandpa Lodall was, and my dad's mother, who passed away shortly after he was given birth, they were from Denmark, and Denmark, kind of by default, Danes historically, since the Reformation, have been Lutheran, and most of the Lodalls in Denmark are. But my grandpa, Lodall, attended a Seventh-day Adventist evangelistic meeting. I did say in the video that didn't get recorded that Ellen G. White was the speaker. I'm not sure about that, actually. Any case, Ellen G. White, as this central figure, founding figure for Seventh-day Adventists, insisted that this drama, what has the central issue of the great controversy is whether God deserves the loyalty of the creatures. This is page 85, first full paragraph. Or to be precise, whether they believe, whether, not so much does God deserve it, but whether the creatures believe that God deserves their loyalty. The devil has fomented doubt about God, and eventually all of God's creatures will acknowledge that God is a being of pure and bounded love. It's interesting that he put that in quotation marks. Love that short description of God, but you would think, given the paragraph, that it's a quotation from Ellen G. White, and it's not. Pure unbounded love thou art is from a famous Charles Wesley hymn, Love Divine, All Loves Excelling. Truly a wonderful hymn. It is interesting that Rice used it here. I'm just going to comment on this quickly, I hope. The phrase, the description of God as pure, unbounded love, actually got a lot of traction in the late 20th century, and Rice's use of it, I would probably kind of connect with this, and he probably knows where it comes from, but it first got used, this is a real side note, by a Methodist theologian by the name of Schubert Ogden, who taught many years at Southern Methodist University down in Dallas, who knowingly drew from this Charles Wesley hymn, which is actually in this case addressed to Christ, or at least that verse is, where it says, pure unbounded love thou art, we won't quibble. It sort of got shifted from this more specific reference to Christ to God by Schubert Ogden, okay? Well, other theologians read it and must have liked it, and it sort of went out into the theological airwaves for a while. Pure, unbounded love. I like it too. And the most dramatic example of this is one of the really, truly influential Catholic theologians of the late 20th century, into our century, is a guy named David Tracy, now retired. If I think he's still alive, but taught at University of Chicago for many years. And David Tracy, I know, quoting it from Ogden, really used this phrase to describe God a lot. Pure, unbounded love. I'm pretty sure, well, Tracy, now I look back, Tracy probably knew about the hymn. I don't know. I just kind of up to this very moment thought he pulled it from this Methodist theologian, and then it really went out there wide. I don't know. Now I'm just blabbing outside, or, uncontrollably. So the main thing would be Rice uses this phrase to describe God, and the God that Ellen G. White is arguing will be vindicated as the truth of God's character is revealed. Then the central issue of the conflict will be settled. The devil loses his argument and the controversy is effectively over. Case closed. But can I just read then that next paragraph? But there's something odd about the notion of weighing evidence when it comes to God. How could God be the object of impartial inquiry, like before all the creatures of the universe? To come to reliable conclusions of any sort, we must be confident that we are looking at evidence that has not been tampered with. And we would not want to think that God would tamper with evidence, but you see, that's just the point. And that our minds are functioning reliably. Given God's unique status in the universe, however, nothing in the way of evidence exists unless God's power sustains it, and our minds work the way they do because God designed them that way. As a result, isn't this great? Every claim to know something implicitly presupposes that God has neither tampered with the evidence nor manipulated our thinking. Seems like a safe assumption, but to determine if God is trustworthy, therefore, we must assume that God is trustworthy. And this, in effect, begs the question. That was a really fun note there. We're talking about the cosmic conflict, aren't we? But let's, even in the midstream here, move to the openness of God model, which I assure you is the one that Rice really champions. In fact, he was one of the real pioneers of it. You'll find his name in the footnote 2. It's so small I can't tell for sure, but page 92 at the bottom, he talks about the best known expression of open theism, Clark Pinnock and so on, but others include Richard Rice. I think he was being very, very humble. His came out, let's put it this way, his came out in 1985. Clark Pinnock's book came out in 1994, so 9 years after Rice. And Richard Rice, interestingly, as a Seventh-day Adventist, and this, I don't know if it was a development from his doctoral thesis or not, but Rice argued for, essentially, that the biblical portrait of God is of one for whom the future is not absolutely known, certainly not in all details, nor is it absolutely decreed or willed by God. That free will theodicy enters in here, that the future is open. That's where I kind of get the openness idea, that the future is open to various possibilities, and that therefore also God is open to, we'll say like unexpected developments in the future. And this would be predicated on the freedom that God has given to creatures. So on this one, it's sort of where the issue rubs is that if you have a free will defense for God, that is that God has created creatures, certainly humans and maybe angelic or spiritual beings as well, that exercise agency, then the question is, does God know, like, how those creatures always will exercise that agency? And if one says yes, it's not because God sort of is a good predictor, but it would be because God knows all things, and all things includes the future. So I like the way that Rice talks about this. I don't know, there's not too many theists, Christian theologians, who would deny God's omniscience, that God knows all things. That's kind of part of what we mean by God, an important part of what we mean by God. But then the issue becomes, is the future such a thing to be known? We might say God knows all things that it is possible to know, and in great detail. But does that include the future, or is the future truly open even to God, at least in some significant ways? And that's where the openness model comes in to say, because God has entrusted this agency to creatures, we might say that God doesn't meddle with it, nor does God sort of, take an extra sneak peek. And of course, there's no sneak peek to be made into the future. Part of this idea is like, if we think of time like on a film strip, as I think we might kind of do sometimes. So like we'd be on this point on the film strip right now in the present, and even now it's that moment's receding into the past. And of course, you keep on going back. Then the question becomes, well, are we on a film strip in which, given that there's a past, is there also an equally real and already existent film strip that extends into the future? Like, that has all events already on it, such that God could just look at the whole film at once and go, yeah, I see how it's all going to pan out. Or is time, I thought I had a finger. Oh, there we go. Yeah, stop it. Is this open, this part over here? Now, this part over here, is this actually open to a vast number of possibilities? The open theist says yes. Now, we're going to come back in a moment there with a little bit more. I'm going to pause here, though. I'm having fun, are you?